Folks, the topic is well chewed up over last 15 years. When I started doing this steel promotion so many years ago, we have discussed this topic so many times, concrete versus steel and why steel is better, where steel can be used, cannot be used. All these things have been literally, thrashed out so many times. But I think this is the last time I'm going to hold this discussion today, but with a very subtle, what you call, layer of psychology into it. The title itself is Dilemma. Dilemma in developer's mind. That is the topic that has been given to us, and we have to debate on it. Okay. So now, for so many years, we have proven where steel can be used optimally and all the advantages of steel, which projects we can use steel, all that has been discussed. And on so many projects, we do these comparisons, concrete versus steel and all that. We go to the client, we convince him this way or that way, and then there is a moment when the client has to take a decision, okay? Knowing everything. So now there is nothing like why steel is better or why concrete is. I'm not getting into that because you have done that before. But there is that one moment, knowing everything, now the client is taking an educated decision, informed decision that yes, we are going to go for steel. Now I'm going to talk about that psychological moment and what happens. All of you have been doing that except Raman, who is the youngest among us. All of us are senior people, and we have done that throughout our life. So we'll talk about that, that psychological moment. So Esan, I will start with you, and you have been doing costing and all that, So you prove that this is better and that is. But then what is that makes you go for steel? Having.
See, right from ICICI, right from ICICI days, Banda, BKC, where we were contractors. We had the edge since...
Just for the unversed, the sir was heading L&T.
I was in L&T construction at that time. We were contractor for Bandra Kulla complex ICICI headquarter, which was a steel building. We had the advantage, L&T had the advantage since we were industrial structure earlier, and then we were a contractor, so we had the resources to do it fast, understand better. But for the slight issue, there was some logistics since heavy sections columns were imported at that time as sections.
That's right.
So the dispatch came that lighter section of the upper story came before the basement column, since it was odd, maybe out of production or they produced for us, I do not know. But that was slight 2-3 months issue. But the moment we got the bottom, we could do that building very fast.
Right.
So as a contractor, being from Larsen & Toubro, which was having the industrial structure, had the resource to do the steel structure, we never have an issue as a contractor. Then when I moved to the realty, where we had to take a decision whether should go for steel structure.
Right.
Actually, we voted and we did back-to-back 2 building steel structure. And the main fundamental advantage what we found to go for full 100% steel structure was there. First is the usable carpet area was very efficient. If we go for the similar structure with concrete, the column sizes were going heavy. You can hardly put any workstation. It was awkward and other things. So we have the spaceability, so we never had a dilemma.
I see, you didn't have it.
That's why we repeated the building. We did the first building,
right.
Large 5 lakh square feet. Then again, I don't know how much tower, 2 towers, back-to-back against steel structure. We pushed there. So we never had it. We had the advantage of space utility, then speed. See, we can go parallelly. We did the foundation and basement. By the time we are doing, the steel structure for the erection was lined up. But for the issue of fireproofing time and the other stretchy requirement where the very less input was available at that time, and it was slightly time consuming, but we found we were never in dilemma. I go for against that.
Maybe by the end of this session, we may go back to Avnit and we'll tell him that the topic was wrong. So there is never a dilemma. So Gyan Prakash ji, you told me that, in fact, I forgot to introduce all of you. So Gyan Prakash ji is an architect who has done a lot of steel buildings and definitely he is most qualified to talk on this because he must have, as an architect, he must have interacted with all the clients and come to that decision. Anand BASAL is in construction himself. He has been involved in logistics and maybe decision making as far as construction is concerned. SHYAM ji was with L&T and he has overseen many projects which involve structural steelization. Okay. And Raman is himself a developer and I'll tell you one or two anecdotes and why he is the right person to be with us. But I'll go back to Gyanji. And now I'll ask you, Gyanji, because you said that information has to be given to the client and that decision is never a dilemma or instinct, as that's what you said. It is always an informed, logical decision.
To begin with, it's always a dilemma because he is concerned more about cost. A developer is more concerned about cost. But then we have to tell him that this, yes, of course it will be costlier by about, earlier it used to be about 15% when the steel prices were around 65 or so. Now it is coming to about 18 to 20% more. But the advantages, you have to explain them their advantages basically. You see, basically is that, one is that you are using less built-up areas for the same construction FAR area, using that because the steel structures are sleeker than concrete structures. Secondly, is even if this is about 20% expensive, the overall cost of the structure work is not more than 30, 35% or 40% maximum. So your impact is morely 5 to 6% or 7% maximum. But the gain which you are going to get is a major thing is about if you can complete your building 1 year earlier, your returns on the investment start coming in. So that is one point where when you talk in terms of money, then he gets convinced. Otherwise, oh, nahi, bahut mushkil hai, aisa nahi hoga. Then second problem which I was facing was, one is that one way to convince them. We have been very successful in convincing government of Rajasthan. We are doing a hospital building for about 1,000-bed hospital building, which will be a multi-story, 25-story building in steel. So we were able to convince them. I'm very happy about it that they agreed. And in last 4 months, we have come to about fourth floor or fifth floor right now. So that time is something which, because they were targeting their elections. So they wanted that hospital should come up fast. So there is either some kind of a political gain or a financial gain, which everybody is looking at. So those are things. Then one more thing which we have started now is the general practice is that structural engineer or architects, they give their design drawings and the contractors prepare the shop drawings. Now what is happening is the number of contractors who take work on little lower rates or things like that, they don't have a kind of infrastructure to do that. Kabhi idhar jayenge, kabhi udhar jayenge, get those drawings, and then to check those drawings again is again a tedious process. So what we have now started suggesting people is that we will give you fabrication drawings at this additional cost. So that saves a lot of time. So these two things, and I think people are now, we are currently doing a lot of office buildings in this. And so I think now only in the residential sector, there is not much encouragement because of that jointing details, no? Because how you RCC and block work or drywalls, and there are still, people are not very convinced. So these are the problems. Otherwise, that acceptability of steel in builder community is coming in a big way now.
So you are also in...
Kingfisher was residential.
are still not convinced, matlab, you know, how the joints will come, plumbing kaise hoga, ye kaise hoga, and
So apart from that residential sector, there you are also saying that there is no dilemma as such. People know.
there is no, currently, you know, it's basically a process. You have to educate people, then the builder community has to understand that, yes, kya fayda hone wala hai, kya nahi. So commercial buildings we are doing in steel,
Right.
I mean the retail malls and all that. And office buildings, of course, people are happy doing it.
Right, right. So as I was saying, I think 1 or 2 months ago, Raman called me and said, Girish, there is a building and we want to do it in steel. Arey, I said, I have not seen the drawings, and he's just calling me and saying, we want to do a building in steel. So what was that? I mean, before even going to a consultant, going to showing him drawings and all that, you are telling me that you want to do a building in steel. So what was that deciding factor that you had yourself decided as a developer?
Sorry. Thank you, Girish, for this question. And, you know, by and large, everybody here sitting here knows why steel is important. See, first I'll give an anecdote. You know, to Girish's question, I have a simple anecdote. If I am making a bread and I have to keep it in shelf, the shelf life is limited, or it can be unlimited, but if I have to keep it in shelf and there is no buyer for it, does it really make sense for me to make? But if there's a buyer ready, so it makes sense for me to make it fast and go. That's the simplest answer to Girish's question. But having said this, I'll just bucket this question of what is that moment, whether to go for steel or not to go for a steel. What is that? See, there are two factors to it. One is, it is undoubtedly that steel construction is fastest. As we are improving our ecosystem, the steel construction is getting more and more better. There is no second thought on that. The question is here, is it expensive? It is definitely expensive. It is definitely expensive than the conventional. How much? Maybe, you know, percentages here or there. I may have a different person, he may have a different person. That is there. But is there a time value of money? There is. If I have a buyer ready and I'm going to make, let's say, 2 million, 3 million square feet of, there is a buyer for me who is ready to occupy. If I finish that building 6 months earlier, so I can lease it 6 months earlier. So there is a definitely, you know, time value of money which compensates for my extra cost, and it makes a lot of sense for me. But every moment, you know, when you're deciding for a predictive occupation, predictive market, then what happens? You know, there are many thoughts which come into your mind. Oh, this is my 30-story building. This will roughly take 30. If I do it in steel, it is 24. What will be the market condition? How it will it compensate? So there are many multiple factors in a place like Mumbai, how complicated the permissions are. So should we take this bite? Should we not take this? So then it becomes basically so many variables are there. Then it's you have to trade off one with other and take a decision. So there are no right answers. But it is a business risk which anybody takes. Now in this particular building, what I do. So otherwise, steel, I mean, there's irrespective, as we are maturing our ecosystem, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that, you know, steel is the fastest way of doing construction. Thank you.
Yeah, but Anand, what about, we talk of, you know, durability and all that. And again, it is the same consideration that we have been discussing. So we choose steel for so many other considerations like speed, and there is a ready buyer and all that. There could be some other conditions as well. As you said, the approach to the site could be difficult for concrete, logistics and all that. But then important questions like corrosion and fire, that don't we think when you take instinctive decisions, don't you think of durability of the building? Don't these questions come to your mind?
I think we are all looking wrongly. If you see the developer, I'm not saying Raman sir level, I'm saying the management level. They don't want to make steel or concrete building, they just want to make building.
Building, yeah.
That's how it starts.
Correct.
Then the decision is not taken in all those technical considerations. Decision is taken with the 4 developers sit together, and once I had done a steel building and I did very well, so next developer is start thinking. This is the common sense, and then he tells team, hey, why not you make in steel? This is the point of starting, not the technical point of starting. Having said that, this is how it start. But look, I'll give you a little long answer. There is a different consideration. You make building in Mumbai where the land cost is 70, 80%, your building cost is 30%, then you can put 400 rupees extra on a steel, it is justifiable. Same thing you go to Bangalore where the land cost is more than 60, less than 60%, 40% is land cost, 60% is construction cost. There the 400 make extraordinary big difference where the rental value is dollar. That's what it said. So in that 10% or 400 rupees extra what you're putting doesn't make a sense for you. So this is the one consideration, then you take a call. Second is RCC wise, if you're making building less than 25 or 30 story, RCC will any day beat you because various other factors, there are many things of it. So, and even if it is taking more time, developer may still opt for that. Now, in spite of it, the decision taken, like he said, mall, we did in Orbit Hyderabad partly in a steel because carpenter was not available. There was no other consideration. Technicality was secondary. Primary was Raheja itself was building 1 million or 2 million square feet. Everybody was engaged there. So we say we do in steel or we will not able to build it. So that was a reason to do in steel. Okay, we'll have a less of carpenter on that. Then some of the area where you can actually do the steel, which is a very long span or very high rise building, where actually it makes sense. You're going 40 story above, then the weight will make the difference of it. So these are the consideration of it, and as I said, the decision making first is done in a developer's office, and second done is the architect office. If architect and structural engineer present the case, key boss, this is a fit case, then it work out. Unfortunately, what happened, many building when it started, nowadays we are in middle develop stage. Initial stages, still didn't give that advantage we promised because of various things. Then third, as Mr. SETH was telling, when we were doing Kingfisher Tower, technology was not available for residential. I didn't know answer that how the sound will not travel. Or in case of vibration, how I will handle the glass, because steel vibration happen, then the glass will crack. So these are building vibration, how we'll handle. It is a combination of a decision, but again, first developer thing, he said, give me building, and in India, give me building means normal building. Still come when you give that much benefit of it, when benefit overweight more than 10, 20, 30%, then it comes to this thing. And that's the changing scenario today probably. Still you don't make mass housing in steel because it's not feasible, even though it's one of the desirable.
Yeah, so to that question I will come later. Why are we not doing steel buildings for residential? We will discuss that. But out of your discussion, what you said just now, and a very interesting point has come up. When the developer, for any consideration, decides to do a steel building, does it tell the architect that I want a building in steel? And then the architect, because it's a different discipline, then he thinks steel and develops his architectural plan to suit a steel building. Otherwise, architect makes plans instinctively for a steel building and then goes to a developer, and then developer thinks, oh, this is a building to be done in steel. So, you got my point? So, steel building, you just cannot have one building and then decide I'll do it in aluminum or concrete or brick or steel. That doesn't happen. You can't translate a building, concrete building into steel just like that. So, when a developer, you're smiling, but when a developer decides, Gyanji, then you have to start thinking as an architect whether you want to design a steel building or a concrete building. Has it happened to you? Again, the psychology.
Unfortunately, we have been trying to convince many clients, many developers, that we should do this particular building in steel.
But do you design it like steel?
To design, initially, to do the construction in steel. But we have not been able to convince the developers in doing housing projects in steel till now. Because nowadays, what is happening is that MyVan construction system has become so popular, and to do, let's say, do external plaster on the 30th floor is becoming really virtually impossible. You don't get labor for that. So that MyVan has become popular. So then they think that MyVan is better not to do it in steel. So slowly and gradually things will change, but till now, I'm not finding any much work being done in steel as far as housing is concerned. But offices and all, people are now accepting.
Okay, but can you answer my question? As a developer.
See, design itself is any business decision you take. So you are not clear whether you know you have to build something. Now it's an office building, you know. Now whether to build it in steel or in concrete, it never starts in day one. It starts with that what I can build here. What is the office? What is the, how the space will be? What is the feasibility like? It's not coming, if I come straight to your question, maybe it takes little lag is there till we get a clarity when we should go for a steel this thing. But I don't think, instructions are very clear. Design a steel building. So, I make a modular. I'll tell you a very case and example which it's very prevalent in Australia. It's very prevalent in US also. And in US it's in a low rise, and Australia it's in a very high rise. So unitized construction, they make it's a container sort of a thing. The building is built keeping in consideration that we have to build a modular building. It's a steel structure, and that's how. I don't think we are, first, there is no, ecosystem here built, there is no much that, but I think there is a lag in our decision whether to make it a steel or a concrete. The architects don't get a straight answer to that. It doesn't get, instructions are not too clear at the beginning. Right. There's a lag.
Correct. But once the decision is taken, that has it happened that plans have been changed to suit this system or the other system?
Yeah, definitely, Girish, it has happened. Actually, there's a very classic case which we were doing with your office. It was in Powai, where, when we were doing with concrete, because it was an old structure where the basement was built, and we wanted to build a commercial structure on top of it. And going ahead with the RCC, it was giving us 3 floors less. So when we started evaluating it with steel structure, we realized that we are not, the raft is not getting overstressed, so we can add 3 more floors. So yes, it's a very exploratory exercise which has happened, and where, we took a decision later and then subsequently we passed on. And with that, when we gave those instructions, there were certain changes with reference to steel, right, which we had to adjust and so that to go ahead. So yes, once you make a decision that you have to make a steel, then obviously those little changes to make ease of construction, to make it modular, that follows.
Right. So, Shyamji, once that decision is taken, suppose, as he said, the decision is taken, the decision is conveyed to the architect, he makes the plans, the construction starts. The fundamental difference between concrete building and steel building is, for steel building, you have to pay upfront in advance to procure the material, and the material comes on site, and then there is hardly any scope for you to change the designs, is what we feel. But I believe you must have gone through a process where material is there, it is being fabricated and all that, and then there are changes to the architecture or structural design. So in such circumstances, as a contractor, did you face any problems earlier?
See,
well,
I feel
I know
it
that
is not much difficult task. I feel steel structure is a bit easier to modify.
Okay.
What we found, wherever we have to add the data center or something like that, steel structure, we found it a bit easier to modify, especially even for the plumbing or HVAC.
Okay.
There was not much issue. Actually, the advantage is there with the steel structure. We found the column and beam is so small that there's ample space available to move the services, and of course additional floor, what he just talked about.
Right.
You get the additional floor.
So that's an advantage in steel
And
building.
going back to that question, in our decision-making process, I feel that architect was a main player to convince along with me to our managing committee to go for steel.
I see.
So he designed the building and proved the utilize carpet area advantages, how the workstation will be better placed if we go for smaller size of the columns and others. I'm not shy. Rajan Deri was there. He was a great advocate and Mr. Nayak was a tough.
Right.
He will not agree for a single paisa more. till he was convinced on the cost benefit of the versus the usable carpet increase and the time advantage what we have for completion.
Right.
So both the way architects, I feel that plays very important role in.
Yeah, naturally. I mean, we have been talking to Gyanji. But there must be other way also, right? There must be other cases when you find that concrete building is better than building it in steel. In some cases, from some considerations. And do you still go to client and tell him, oh, no, build it in concrete only? Do you do that?
I feel he would be, we did.
In some very rare cases. I mean, unless and until like we're doing one auditorium where we had some problems. Well, not much actually. When you decide on steel, I think I always personally see all advantages only.
Right. No, so still we are sold out on steel, definitely we as all entire community. So I'm just asking if it exists. So Anand, I told you, I threatened you with a question and I'm going to ask it now. By the way, we are going to close this very shortly and leave the session to question and answer because Anand has to catch a flight. But this could be a very negative question as far as all of us are concerned. Have you regretted going in for steel building? You might have gone halfway, or you might have completed the building, or you might have handed over the building, and then you thought at any given point, I should not have done this building in steel.
So Girish, there is one famous case that there was a contractor who used to come with a lawyer in the front. So there are people, that's what, this is the statement told to me by one of my L&T friend when we were talking. So there were 2-3 cases where we had our own share of difficulty, and one of the building which was 111-meter tall building, and we wanted to do in steel as a first building of a steel composite structure and all, and everything was. Even though it was not, it was decision to do in steel as a first building. So we'll repeat on that. And that time, trust me, we were doing as a company was doing more than 3 million square feet as a commercial space every year. So this was a pilot case which could have opened a very big way for a company's future in terms of doing, what material to use. And we did the steel building on that. But midway, yes, we were stuck because for a very small and petty issue, the vendors decided his managing director come and he threatened, I will walk off. I'm talking petty issue means it doesn't need even in management level, could have been resolved at site, those kind of issues. Plus, as I say, we did Kingfisher Tower with the SETH sir and me were negotiated together and did the building together. And we had a phenomenal experience. One side L&T, another side the other contractor. And all problem they used to come with a solution. This is the solution. And wherever there is a really cost increase, they will ask, otherwise no. So what happened? It was a very pleasant experience. We wanted to do a lot. But the other side story was different. If your core wall is shifted few they say you have to redesign. You give me redesign fees, then I will redesign. And then you give me the extra cost for a steel, then I will do. And few I'm not talking of this. And for that, until you approve the cost in advance, I will not do the building. And it was, you think of building is gone 60%, and we are thinking that it will do the well. So, and otherwise, the decision was little wrong in terms of, we did in center of city. So, logistic issue, same L&T, ICIC. So, somehow we finished the building and steel was very fast once we had shot out the foundation problem and all. But this has a 2-3 effect as a company as a such, that particular incident company has somehow finished. After they didn't build any steel building. Because steel, even though was coming cheaper, they will not do. Plus they had gone and told the developer all, so you won't find much build. Many people ask me why there is not too many building in Bangalore. So this is the probably reason. And second, these are the, what you say, the catalyst effect of a people don't realize their small action create the very. In commercial issue which we discussed, finalized was less than 2 lakh rupees for a 180 crore building. So you can see the difference of it. So I was actually more this thing because I was hoping that this will put a, way for a future steel building and all those things. We did many 40, 50, 40-story building there. Are many commercial offices where it was very suitable, column spacing and everything was there. But this experience was, put the management point of view, like steel is A, costly and B, difficult. Developers are confused because we tell 7 days floor will do and then our if, buts and terms condition come. So for a, sir, L&T know steel is there, or Rahejas know what is steel. Lot of developers, and second, as a professional, you can't convince management what's the, other side.
That's
So,
right.
Experience.
I want to share a
Yeah,
wonderful this cost-benefit experience which I had with this team. That is just before the contract is awarded. I landed up there and gone for the negotiation with them, and they found that I am costly, since any L&T will be costly. So he told, your one item flooring is very costly. I'm like, okay, if flooring I do cheap, contract is mine. They told, yes, yes. I'm like, flooring, whatsoever rate you want to do, you put the rate and get it done. Remove from me, but give me contract. I want to do this building. The building was so fascinating. It's still structure, and we know that building was made for us.
Right.
So it was very exciting moment. I do recollect that evening, late night when we were negotiating.
Since he here, I will tell one secret of his contract. He came and said, sir, whatever you say, I will agree everything. He didn't agree everything, but he still took the contract. So great.
Right. I think all of us professionals do that. I mean, you must have also done it. If there is a project that you want to do, you will do it at any cost. You don't listen to this, but it happens, Yeah.
Now, Girish, one more point on dilemma I wanted to add. I missed it. When you do warehouse, you don't think of concrete, no? You don't think of
No,
concrete.
there are some buildings that, I mean, there is no alternative, right? There is no alternative.
What
You
happens,
have to do it.
Type of building decide, but the trouble is today, lot of area, concrete is taking over steel. If you think earlier bridges, railway bridges,
Yeah.
all railway bridges historically done in steel, but today almost all the bridges are done in concrete. So what happened, as I was talking in another seminar, there is a more innovation and the flexibility in concrete. So they are, taking over this thing. So this is one thing which has to be, you have to make it innovative, you have to make it more
No, I think it's
flexibility.
evolution of
Revolution.
materials, and I believe even in steel it is happening. Even steels are getting more fire resistant or high-grade steels. This will happen. So, I mean, there is always a race, steel was ahead in all these properties and concrete was behind. Now, concretes are being produced with M150, M200, grades. So there is concrete which doesn't need reinforcement. That is what we are talking of. So all this race is going to go on, and steel will also evolve, or maybe some better alloys will come and all that.
It's a big threat from the precast in industrial shed. It is coming.
No.
Precast in 2000 in Indonesia. Look, I always believe in an ecosystem of idea. In Indonesia, we were getting precast, pre-stressed pile in the 2000, which is not even available in India today. So what I'm seeing, it's all ecosystem. Today, steel ecosystem has come to the level that suddenly things are start getting available. Still, I had a clip from the discussion key. We don't have all sections available or something. Generally used to tell you pay the money, wait for 2 months and get the steel. That was the situation 8, 9, 10 years back. Today things have changed. So that's the benefit of taking the decision. And I didn't agree with him one topic that steel modification is not that easy. For him it's easy because they were L&T. Common man getting material replacement is tough. It's not that modification you will do in 2 days. Your beam one got damaged or some change, getting it in the market or getting it from the manufacturer, it's a very tough. It's not that they don't want to give, it's not available.
No, but things might change. I mean, you mentioned that in those days when you contracted him, they were putting conditions. And even some few years ago, our contractors were, if there is some change after the tender, they will claim very high costs and all that. But I think that was because there were less players in the market. Maybe at that time only L&T we could rely on, and there could be some other fellow in some north or something. But now we have got many players in structural steel, and I don't believe any competitive contractor will start claiming abnormally if there are changes. They are cooperative. Do you think so?
UB City, Pinnacle, there was only one contractor in India, that was L&T.
Correct. But now it's not the case.
Kingfisher Tower, you had a 2. Now you have a 10. So
correct. So that consideration that steel, if you use steel and contractor will hold you for ransom, and he has done so many buildings in Rajasthan in steel, I don't think that condition exists now.
No, Girish, that's definitely the supply-demand situation. See, today, as more and more people are coming into this field, so definitely it is easing down the supply side, and definitely demand side is getting stronger. But having said that, there's a skill set gap is there.
Yeah.
See, today, if you see, even if I may be a fabricator, but do I have a right welder? If you tell today a welder, flat, what is the flat position? What's the vertical run? How do you do overhead welding? What's the weld speed? What is this thing? So, if you see those criterias, somewhere it is lost, which was, maybe 25 years back, it was very much prevalent. But as more and more steel buildings are getting into PBs, getting into this, so the skill set also will grow and it will consolidate. So today what I see, this is my personal thing, there is a skill set gap and there is too much of demand for this thing. So for that reason also, as long as everything is coming to the factory, it's a different thing. But as long as things have to be done at site, even if it's a field splice or even if it's a field welding, we don't have an appropriate skill still.
That's
so
right.
There is this thing. If you talk to somebody which is HSV bold, you have a supervising staff who has no idea about what is the HSV bold, what's the torsion to be, what's the torque to be given to that, what is this. So there is a lot of gap in the whole this thing. So which with time, obviously it will cover. So to that extent, I feel while there are supply side is getting eased up, but the skill gap is still there.
That's right.
So that has to be still filled. So that will give a lot of comfort. Whereas in concrete, you don't have much of a skill set gap in this because anybody comes in and he becomes. But anybody cannot come and become a welder.
That's right.
So that difference is there.
That's right. That's right. Right. I think we...
there is one more point which I had found in professional career. Familiarity. We were doing one building which was a commercial building, 100% fit for steel, 12-meter high column in the 1 ton, very heavy, everything suitable for steel. Now, company don't want to do for 2 reasons. The main structural designer or the architect team, they had never done in steel, they were not familiar. So, since they were not done, so they were afraid, what will happen? I'm telling real case scenario. In spite of it, we say, then the contractor, he was not familiar and company has some tie-up. So he says, I will do in the same speed, same thing in a concrete. It never happened.
Yeah.
But when people are not familiar, when you are driving the manual car and suddenly auto came in, it's not that difficult, but you're not familiar, so you don't want to drive. So this is now easing it out a lot. Like you see
that particularly contractors coming up with design and build systems, even if architect and structural engineers, they are not familiar, they can comfortably assume a role of peer reviewer and the contractor can become a design and build vendor. So these things will definitely, like PT vendor, I mean, they give design and they construct as well. So things will change. I think I don't want to discuss this issue anymore, as I said, because for last 15 years we have been doing this, and I'm going to make sure that this organization will never discuss concrete versus steel in future, okay? But to settle that issue, if you have any questions, once and for all, you ask them and then we'll close. Yeah, Sunil.
Perception management issue that how you manage the perception of the person who is going to take the decision. For example, if tomorrow I give a choice to all four of you that you have to design and construct a building which is for the captive consumption of your organization, and the same building you have to design for sell or lease, probably the answers will be different. So I want to hear from all four of you that if this is the case, how we will manage the perception or how we need to go into the market to change the perception of the decision maker.
You will answer after me. He will answer after me. Since he already mentioned that he had the client ready. And in-house, you have the use ready. So both will go for the same. But in case of progressive, I do not know. He will better judge. In our case, even we made some structure steel or concrete. There are cases where when we had the dull period of commercial, the vacant space was tremendous across India. So whether speed, which offset the cost, speed which offset the cost because of choosing the steel structure which is costly in India, loses its meaning. So people go for concrete. And over and above what the skill set, what Bansalji and he talked about, that was the only advantage we had. We will get the job and we took those jobs. Okay, thank you.
No, Sunil, I'll tell you one thing. See, it's a rule of, what you can say, this is life. Every logical decision, you have to have a perception management. There's absolutely, even if it may be white, the answer may be black and white, but until you do a perception management, nothing works. So I will say yes to you, what you're saying. Even if you're logical, if you're not selling it well, if you're not packaging it well, it's not going to be, built. So that is for sure. But yes, you try your best to build the perception. Then again, to what it's basically who is in front of you. How does he perceive you and how do you perceive him? So it is all about that. So see, mathematically everything may be right. But until and unless you build that, it's not going to do.
Yeah, even then, the buyers and sellers' perceptions, if they match, there's no problem, right?
I'll quote one fantastic live example. While coming from Terminal 2 to this particular hotel, somebody is constructing a building in CFT and the entire facade is in precast. So look at his perception. Completely different. Very shortly, probably he will inaugurate that hotel. I'm trying to search who that contractor.
It's a hotel.
GIRISH is a hotel. I'm not sure any of us must be here who must be involved in this, but I'm still trying to figure out an answer why it is done like that.
No. The whole building is steel, and
Facade is in
facade is precast. The obvious answer is the speed, and it is next to airport. So naturally, he is in competition with other hotels. He has to invest and start getting returns as fast as possible.
No, but it had started long back. That's what I mean.
That's a different
See,
story.
the fascia precast is a very common thing, and it really helps the type of surfaces what we get, especially the only point which precast scores over Maiwan is a better fascia. Correct, na? If precast is going to replace tomorrow Maiwan, since speed-wise, because of the skill set what earlier discussed, that Maiwan workers you may get better, precast may be again more mechanized, more dependent, more dependent on the few agencies. But if precast is going to replace Maiwan, it will be the better quality of concrete, factory made, more durability, and better looking.
Right.
Where the precast will come and try to replace the Maiwan in residential, which I see very great scope in India, that especially SITCO when SITCO MD had one-to-one discussion with me, he had the option of for such a large project which afterward awarded to precast. He told frankly, as you come out of L&T, tell me what we should go for. Then I told for the future and for the real product and the nice product, you go for precast.
Right.
At a personal level, I feel the precast.
Sunil, answer to your question. Look, when the decision making is sitting with somebody like Mr. SETH or Mr. SAPRU, they take a logical decision ki what is fit for that particular type of building. They're doing 60-story building and they think that steel is better, than the decision making is that direction. But you think of a guy who did whole life only concrete, never did the steel. Even though he may know that it's giving the benefit, but this is a confirmation bias. He will always think steel is better. Like when we do calculation of certain things, so whatever we like, we make it more points and all. That's right. And the perception for remaining area where the decision making is done, that is done by the architects. This thing, architect confidence will play on that, because all successful developer has some of the best relationship with the architect, because they put their life saving, a life business on the architect's advice, good or bad and all those things. You know, that's so until architects give them that confidence, it doesn't happen. That's what I had seen it. So yes, it's a perception, but where there is a solid knowledge, information is available, then the decision making is more logical on that. And sometimes it's a pure emotional, because I have done this RCC, I will do in RCC. So you can't change that kind of mindset.
Yeah, final word from Ken.
I think it's again, what you are saying is right, but then what happens is that how you convince them, how you make them, how you educate them, that makes them make decision better. Because everybody understands the value of money and time and everything, and returns. In fact, any building, even it be for a self-use or for somebody else, time matters. So that is where the way.
You remember Hafiz was telling first building, he saved the money, that's why he got it. Well, we start from there, confidence on architect.
Right. Yeah. Shekhar.
Maybe Raman and Anand. When the buyer is not there, you are building it and then you are going to lease out. What is the perception of the future tenant? Whether he would prefer a steel building or he would prefer a RCC building?
No, I will group up this question. You are saying, what is the buyer's perception of a steel building? So will he come into this or not? See, the segment we operate, IT or ITES, which is mostly, the decision makers are international. They are from US, they are from this thing. It is something which they have seen it earlier. Because if you see US, it's full with steel structures. If you go to any other part, most probably London or Australia for that matter, or Singapore. So there it is, steel is very commonly done. I'm not saying most of the Europe, but yes, where the decision makers are. Steel is a very common perception. And if you build, and they know that this is a rated developer who must not have taken a shortcut, who must not have done this thing. So I don't see any shortcoming with their decision. Because it's a steel building, they may not take it. So only thing is, when you're constructing a steel building, there's a definite consideration that maybe, we may not have we cannot do many of the changes. Maybe we keep a knockout panels at many places where people have to join together. Maybe, we'll have to consider it, okay, if this floor goes into 2 offices or 4 offices, then what happens? So those probabilities we build at the beginning of the project so that it is taken into consideration. But normally all these ITES buildings, they take 1 million, 1.5 million. So it's as good as selling them the whole building, leasing them the whole building. So I don't see much of a impact because of the type of construction, whether steel or RCC, making on the decision making. Though they have their checklist, which actually specifies nature of construction, whether it's RCC, whether it's this, but it's more of a tick box than anything else. So I have not seen people swinging their decision because of this.
Bangalore city center, UBCT is done in concrete. Trade tower is done in the steel. Difference is less than 3 kilometers. Rentability or something, I didn't find any client ever asked me on that question. There was no, they were looking the overall this thing. Earlier there used to be, you have to work as per the international specs, they will give specs. But now most of developers make those specs, so they define their requirement and you submit. 99% building satisfy requirement, and those are less of structure, more of more of a AC or electrical and all those things. So that's not a much difference on that side.
Yeah, while we are building in concrete and masonry, we are facing a completely disorganized construction sector. That is the reality of today. We also do steel buildings where it is fairly organized. I'm just hypothetically imagining a scenario where India starts building steel everywhere. Are we capable of handling another disorganized sector? Where are we heading? Because as one of our panelists pointed out, there are a lot of steel fabricators who cannot even do shop drawings. And consultants themselves are taking up that work. But do they have the capacity, that not the consultant, the fabricators, do they have the capacity to have the safety that is required at the fabrication site, or the quality checks that goes in, or all the connections that comes into the steel structures? And is this the right way to just flood the market with steel, as we are doing with regular masonry and concrete structures?
Yanji, you would like to answer?
Actually, it depends a lot upon the people who are getting it executed. The PMC or the architectural staff or engineering supervisory staff. They have to do all kind of tests at the site and at the factories of the fabricators. We have to regularly send our people there, whether they are doing it accurately, whatever X-rays and all that, all those tests, or ultrasound sonic tests also, everything is being done. So that is for some, I mean, the supervising staff has to do it.
Yeah, I understand that you are doing it. I'm just asking as a market perspective.
The market perspective is also emerging. You see, now people are getting more and more trained people, more units are coming up who have all the facilities. So before you give an order, you have to actually look at that. So any new material which comes into the market, that R&D has to be done. And then that strict supervision has to be done. Without that, even doing the concrete is also not like that. You have to check all reinforcements, everything, shuttering check karte hain, saria check, sab karte hi hain. So those things will have to be done here also.
Say something?
I will add up that as far as you have focused for the building, I will just divert to the heavy structures. That the manufacturer should also raise their standard. As we have done, I have explained that for the Mahatma Gandhi SETU, the decision was to be taken by the government. But we insisted for the steel structure because there were certain advantages. But there were their apprehensions which were to be addressed. So we went for that. And only the Ashita Mittal was in the position to give in that time frame of the steel we required at that time of the grade of E485. Means we convinced the government that we will construct this bridge in the weather-proof condition. Steel, there are certain apprehensions with the end user, or whosoever stakeholder is there, that the longevity or durability, you can say, that should also be addressed by the manufacturers. So in the coming days, certainly after constructing this road bridge, well, you are certainly told by this forum that railway was the first prior to go for the steel bridges. But this was the first bridge we went in a long way with the steel. And because we addressed their apprehensions, so the government was also convinced, and if somebody will move from Dehradun to Delhi, what Gadkari sir is expressing that within 2 hours, that entire elevated structures are being done with the steel girders. So I hope that the manufacturers will also elevate their standard, all the leading manufacturers. And
That's
certainly, as far as manpower is concerned, the Indians, they are doing very well in the after going abroad. So welders and fabricators, they pick up like anything. If we will give little bit training, the manpower is available to do the miracle. Thanks.
That's right. Okay, I think any more questions? Yep. Last question, because it's almost 1 hour we have been talking.
Yeah. So my question, I'll ask my question and then I'll make a comment on that. So that my question is, if we are talking about going it in a big way in the steel construction, what are the skill building steps which any forum is taking? Because to create that kind of impact, the bottom-up approach has to be there. When the IT industry grew up and the industry realized they don't have the skilled manpowers, all the IT industry created the skill building within themselves. Okay, so that's one thing. So that is something which all forums, what is happening? If it is happening, I'm not aware of it. And then there is a comment on Mr. Basal's thing saying that railway is moving towards concrete. In fact, it's the other way around now. RDSO has done standard drawings, and they approve the drawing only if you do one of the standard. The unfortunate part is they have gaps. So they'll have a 48-meter span, but they don't have a 44-meter span. Then next you go to 42-meter span. And the railways have given a notification that you can't put a pier inside their land. So the railways are going back, but they have a lot of puzzle pieces to fit in. And Mr. Sood is not here in this room, but hopefully something is happening in RDSO, especially we are also pushing. If we have a requirement of a skew over 25 degrees, please make that as a standard so the next guy does not suffer. Right. So about the skill buildings.
Skill building, I will answer this question because this forum in last year, we decided to, go to the educational institutes, and ISCC has appointed 2 or 3 people in academic field to draft graduate studies and postgraduate courses for structural steel. And this forum is going to take it up. Obviously, we declared this in the last steel day, but we found that 1 year is not enough to draft that syllabus, but because graduate study, at least 3 years course in structural steel, it's quite difficult even today to form, but we are going to do that. Post-graduation, yes, definitely we are at it. And some of our committee members are actively drafting that syllabus. And we want to implement it first in autonomous colleges and universities so that we don't face problems from established universities, because it's difficult to change syllabi of established universities. But we'll go to autonomous universities and start this structural steel design and construction. Design is fine, there are design courses, but construction and construction management in steel, we want to take it up. So this forum is actively doing it. I don't know about other forums, but we are going to take it up.
Yesterday, there was one of the panelists from JSW. So he said, we are working with IIT Powai, and where they are trying to, incorporate this curriculum, steel structure curriculum in the undergraduate course.
Yeah.
So there are
we are going to IITs also because they are autonomous. Yeah.
And my comment was on context ki lot of area which was traditionally steel, the concrete has gone. One of the example was Washi Bridge. Earlier, all railway bridges used to be the steel. Later, if you see lot more, whatever new bridge I see, it's more of a concrete. Probably the technology has improved our way of doing it. Bangalore, we had built metro, I had seen less than 0.5% in steel, 99% in concrete. So I'm saying this is a threat. We have to also improve on that. It's in that context.
I think we'll close on these comments, and thank you very much for being patient for this topic. And thank you all panelists for being
GIRISH,
so
thank
interesting.
you very much.